Good morning. Good morning. Merry Christmas. So, I've been working on my sermon today for a couple of weeks, looking at the life of Joseph. And I have about 45 minutes of lecture planned. And then yesterday morning I said to Andy, Andy, I don't think my sermon's going to land for Christmas Day, if I'm honest. So we talked it through, and Andy zeroed in on my best illustration. And we agreed, just do that. Because it's Christmas Day and they don't want anything else. So this morning, with Andy's permission, we are revisiting a sermon series that we did in the summer. Do you remember in the summer we had a sermon series called God's iPod? For anyone who's under the age of about 40, that's God's Spotify playlist these days. Well, we took a secular tune and we were looking for resonance with the Christian story. Well, welcome to the Christmas version of God's iPod. And the song that I have chosen for this morning is a firm favourite. It is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was released in 1949 by the country and western singer Gene Autry. And it tells the story of the ninth and youngest reindeer who would become the leader of the pack and pull Santa's sleigh through the fog. Anyone here been to Amherst School? It's a firm favourite at Amherst School, isn't it? We remember Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Yeah, we remember that one. It sold 2.5 million copies in the year that it came out. That was a lot. And it has sold 150 million copies in the US alone in its various forms, making it the second most popular Christmas song of all time, behind Bing Crosby's White Christmas. What you might not know, and what I didn't know, is that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is based on a book from a decade earlier, 1939. Written by Robert L. May, and that's his picture here. The song was actually written by his cousin, interestingly enough. America is coming out of the Great Depression. May is in debt. He's nursing a very sick wife at home, and he's working as a copywriter for Montgomery Ward Company in the States. It's a department store. Think John Lewis. May, by all accounts, wasn't a particularly happy man at work. He felt his skills were wasted. He dreamed of writing the great American novel. Instead, he was writing catalogue copy about men's shirts. Every Christmas, the company would give away colouring books with their Christmas purchases. But this year, they wanted something different as a Christmas promotion. And May was known around the office for his limericks. So they commissioned him with the task. May is inspired, he says, by a couple of things. Hans Christian Andersen's The Ugly Duckling. And then his own childhood experience. He describes himself as a shy and not especially popular boy at school. So he gives us this story about a ninth reindeer who doesn't fit in. Apparently an original suggestion for the name was Rollo. Rollo the reindeer. But it felt it was a bit too light-hearted. Reginald, which was too European. So eventually he settled on Rudolph. And the song starts well enough, doesn't it? We know it. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. Right, let's stop there. Rudolph is introduced. Rudolph is different. Rudolph is unique. Rudolph is special. His nose glows. In the original book, it's described like a red blinking beacon, using language of the time. Rudolph sometimes feels like he doesn't quite fit. We are fortunate at Bessels that we are a diverse community of all sorts of different people. And we have all kinds of folk coming to worship with us. We have folks that come in chairs. We have folks that come, a guy that comes with a stick. We have Sarah's SEN group. We have David and we have others. And friends, we are better for it, for being a diverse community of people. And there are others too whose differences are less visible and less obvious. And you are welcome here too. But of course, in the song, the second verse takes a bit of a darker turn, doesn't it? All of the other reindeer, well, they used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Poor Rudolph. In the original book and story, the reindeer games were a running race that they all take part in. And Rudolph's dad has covered his nose with mud to make him fit in. And he wins the running race as the mud falls off his face and they all see him. And it's Rudolph who's won. He's then banned from taking part in any future reindeer games because he is different. He finds himself on the outside, excluded. Imagine the other reindeer pointing and whispering, "There's Rudolph." The judgment, the shame. Well, there's another character in our story today who knew that same finger pointing, wagging, and shame. In our reading today, Mary, the unmarried, pregnant teenage girl, which at the time was extremely rare. We read this: Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be pregnant. Utter scandal. Imagine the pointing, the whispering, the judgment, the shame. There were really only two ways out of her predicament. There is death or divorce. Her husband, Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to divorce her quietly. But then we read, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you will name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." Joseph, do not be afraid. Go back to Mary. Take her to be your wife. So that's what he does. He returns to Mary. I imagine the controversy, the shock, the finger pointing, the wagging was still going on, but at least they are now in this together. They have each other, and they will see it through. When Joseph awoke from the sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded. He took her as his wife. But they had no marital relations with her until she had given birth to a son, and he named him Jesus. Thanks to Mary and Joseph's faithfulness, Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, is born. So the story goes that May was working late one night. He was behind a deadline to deliver his first copy of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He's sitting in his Chicago office. It was foggy outside, and he spotted a light shining through the fog, lighting the way, and that was it. He had the idea that he needed to finish his book, and that eventually made it into the song. Rudolph would have a bright red nose that would shine in the fog and light the way. That would be Rudolph's difference, but it would also be that characteristic, that feature that would save the day. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, "Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" Oh, how the reindeer loved him. They shouted out with glee, "Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you'll go down in history." Rudolph's red nose lighting the way through the fog, providing a way and saving the day. Friends, the world is foggy at the best of times. Life feels uncertain and life can sometimes feel unsafe. You know what it's like when you're driving in the fog and you need the full beam on the headlights to light the way to see where you are going. We need the light to dispel the gloom. The Christmas story is this, that God did not leave us without light, but entered our world in the form of a newborn, helpless baby. Emmanuel, God with us, a light in the darkness to shine the way through the fog. The true light that gives light to everyone. And secondly, all of us are welcome, whoever we are, whatever our differences, however we feel different, our unique gifts and our glowing noses. You are all very welcome in all of our diversity. So maybe, just maybe, next time you hear the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you'll make one or two new connections.